Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today, we are stepping right into one of the most intense, heart-pounding situations you can ever face as a non-native English professional: high-stakes meetings and executive presentations. Picture this exact scenario. You have prepared for days. You have slides full of brilliant data, months of research, and incredible insights. You walk into the boardroom, or you dial into the video call. On the other end of that table, or on the other side of those webcam boxes, are senior vice presidents, global directors, potential investors, or key clients. English is their first language, or at least they operate in it with complete, effortless ease. Your heart rate begins to spike. Your hands get slightly cold. You know your subject matter inside out, but as soon as the meeting starts, your brain suddenly switches into survival mode. You worry about stuttering. You worry that if you pause for too long to find the right word, someone will interrupt you or assume you do not know the answer. You worry about getting hit with an unexpected, aggressive question from a senior stakeholder and freezing up in front of everyone. If you have ever felt that cold wave of panic wash over you in an important meeting, I want you to take a deep breath, because today's episode was made specifically for you. Handling high-stakes meetings in English is not about speaking like a Shakespearean actor or possessing a dictionary-level vocabulary. It is about strategic communication, emotional regulation, and mastering a set of reliable frameworks that protect your executive presence under pressure. By the end of this episode, you will have a clear, actionable playbook that turns those high-pressure meetings from a source of anxiety into your greatest professional launchpad. Before we look at tactics and phrases, let us look closely at why high-stakes meetings cause such severe cognitive overload for non-native speakers. When you enter a routine conversation, your brain operates with relatively low cognitive friction. But when the stakes are high, three massive psychological pressures hit you simultaneously. First, there is the processing speed gap. When native speakers speak rapidly in meetings, they use idiom-heavy phrasing, connected speech, and fast-paced turn-taking. While your brain is decoding sentence number 1, they are already halfway through sentence number 3. Trying to listen deeply, translate mentally, and formulate your own response at the exact same time creates an instant bandwidth bottleneck. Second, there is the authority distraction. In many traditional academic or workplace cultures, we are conditioned to view senior leaders as evaluators who are constantly grading us. When you enter a high-stakes English meeting with this mindset, every pause or slight grammatical slip feels like an academic failure. You start monitoring your own performance instead of focusing on the business problem being solved. Third, there is the fear of losing the floor. In fast-paced global business environments, people jump into conversations quickly. If you hesitate for even 2 seconds to translate a phrase in your head, someone else steps in, the topic shifts, and your valuable point remains unsaid. Understanding these three pressures allows us to realize something fundamental. Your struggle in high-stakes meetings is not a lack of English ability. It is a management challenge of your working memory and conversational pacing. When senior leaders ask for your input in a meeting, they are not looking for an essay. They do not want a long, chronological backstory of how you arrived at a conclusion. They want maximum value in minimum time. The most effective tool to structure your thoughts instantly under pressure is the PREP method, which stands for point, reason, example, and point. Let us break down how PREP works in practice during a high-stakes scenario. Suppose a director looks at you during a strategic review and asks whether you should launch a marketing campaign in quarter 3 or push it to quarter 4. Instead of rambling or searching for complex transitional phrases, you immediately execute the PREP structure. You start directly with your core recommendation, stating clearly that you strongly recommend pushing the campaign launch to quarter 4. Notice how clear and unambiguous that is. You have not explained why yet. You have given them the bottom-line answer immediately. Next, you provide the primary rationale backing your point, explaining that the main reason is that our local localization team needs an extra 4 weeks to complete product compliance testing to avoid regulatory delays. Then, you bring in a concrete piece of data or a real-world illustration, noting that during the quarter 1 launch in Germany, Rushing the compliance step resulted in a 2-week product hold at customs, which cost nearly 20% in launch momentum. Finally, you reiterate your bottom line with a call to action, concluding that delaying the launch to Q4 ensures full compliance and protects revenue targets. Look at what you just accomplished in less than 45 seconds. You did not waste mental energy wondering how to transition between sentences, nor did you use overly complex vocabulary. You delivered a crisp, executive-level recommendation that made you sound structured, confident, and completely in control. Whenever you are put on the spot in a meeting, anchor your mind to those 4 steps. State your point, give your reason, offer a concrete example, and restate your point. One of the greatest fears non-native speakers share is the fear of silence. When someone asks you a complex or unexpected question, 2 seconds of dead air can feel like an eternity. In your panic to fill the silence, you might start speaking before your thought is formed, leading to rambling, filler words, or grammatical confusion. Native executives pause all the time, but they do it strategically using executive stalling phrases. These are professional, natural bridge sentences that buy your brain 5 to 10 seconds of precious processing time without losing your authority. For example, you can use strategic validation by saying that it is a crucial question and that you should break down the 2 main factors to consider here. By saying this, you validate the questioner, signal to the room that a structured answer is coming, and buy yourself several seconds to organize your main points. Another approach is scope refinement, where you say you want to make sure you address the most critical aspect of the question, asking whether they are looking at this primarily from a budget perspective or a timeline perspective. This formula turns a passive answering position into an active, collaborative dialogue, clarifying expectations while giving you time to assemble your data. You can also use a data retrieval bridge by saying, you will pull up the exact figures on that so you give the most precise answer. Whether you are actually clicking a tab on your laptop or simply organizing your thoughts, this phrase establishes that you care about accuracy rather than rushing out an incomplete response. Lastly, there is immense power in a deliberate thought pause, simply stating that it is an interesting angle, and asking for just a moment to structure your thoughts on that. Delivering this with a calm, steady tone shows extreme confidence, as only an expert feels comfortable taking a deliberate pause to deliver a thoughtful answer. In fast-paced international meetings, being polite does not mean staying silent while others dominate the conversation. If you wait for a perfect, silent invitation to speak, the meeting might end before you get a word in. You need to learn how to interrupt diplomatically and how to hold the floor when someone tries to cut you off. To jump into an ongoing discussion smoothly without sounding aggressive, you can use bridge interruptions. You might say, if I could jump in briefly on that point, or building directly on what was just shared, or that you would love to add a quick piece of context from the operational side. Phrases like jumping in briefly or adding a quick piece of context signal respect for the current speaker while firmly inserting your voice into the flow. If you are speaking and someone interrupts you before you finish your point, many non-native speakers immediately yield the floor and quiet down, assuming the interrupter has higher authority. Instead, you can gracefully hold your space using firm holding phrases, such as asking to finish the thought quickly before hearing their take, or noting that you have just one quick point to complete on the slide before opening it up for questions. Delivered with a warm smile and a calm, firm tone, these phrases establish instant executive presence, showing that your contribution is valuable and structured. When someone directly challenges your data or pushes back aggressively, your natural instinct might be to get defensive or to panic because your English phrasing feels limited under stress. The secret to handling pushback is the acknowledge, reframe, respond method. When an objection is raised, never respond with an immediate no or a defensive explanation. First, acknowledge and validate their concern without necessarily agreeing with their conclusion, expressing that you completely understand why that metric raises a concern. Second, reframe the issue, shifting the focus from a disagreement to a shared strategic objective, noting that what is really being balanced is short-term implementation cost against long-term operational efficiency. Third, respond with your evidence using clear, objective data, explaining that while the initial outlay is 15% higher, Projections show full cost recovery within 8 months due to automated workflows. By acknowledging first and reframing second, you diffuse tension in the room and keep the conversation focused on business metrics rather than personal performance. A huge secret of world-class communicators is that high-stakes meetings are rarely won during the meeting itself. They are won before the meeting starts and solidified after it ends. If you know English is going to take extra cognitive energy during a high-stakes call, maximize your pre-meeting leverage. Pre-align key stakeholders by speaking to 1 or 2 key decision-makers individually a day before the big call. Share a brief overview of your thoughts and get their initial feedback so that when you walk into the main meeting, you already have allies in the room who understand your direction. Additionally, prepare your anchor terms. Before the meeting, write down 3 to 5 key business terms, metrics, or transition phrases you plan to use on a sticky note next to your screen, which drastically reduces cognitive load during live speaking. After the meeting, maximize your post-meeting leverage by sending a concise follow-up summary email within 2 hours of the meeting ending, thanking everyone for the productive discussion and summarizing key outcomes and next steps. This written summary solidifies your leadership, ensures absolute clarity across the team, and bridges any minor gaps that might have occurred during live spoken interactions. As we wrap up today's episode, remember this core truth. In high-stakes global meetings, people do not remember whether you used a perfect subjunctive clause or whether every preposition was flawless. They remember your clarity, your strategic thinking, your composure, and the value you brought to the table. Your non-native background, your unique perspective, and your ability to navigate multiple languages and cultures is not a limitation. It is a massive professional asset. Do not shrink back in high-stakes moments. Step up, use the prep framework, take your time, and deliver your value with confidence.